Ms. Tin Pei Ling.
Mr. Speaker, sir, we debate in Parliament today as we face the challenge of a generation. We face not just the onslaught of a relentless viral outbreak, but must also deal with the disruptions wrought by COVID-19. We will need to respond robustly to this challenge. Beyond the shock of COVID-19, our living environment is also seeing secular changes. It has become an increasingly sophisticated world with a sophisticated population in Singapore. Parliament, too, reflects this diversity. As we navigate these changes, I believe that we need to maintain a balanced approach, changing with the times, but still holding dear to what we find important as Singaporeans. At this point in time, I can think of three key balances that we need to strike. First, balancing between forging ahead versus bringing everyone along. The Wright brothers flew their first flight in 1903, but it took 50 years before air travel became commonplace in the 1950s. Similarly, the steam engine took almost half a century since its invention to disrupt the shipping industry. Today, a single app, if it is the right one, can change the world within a year or two. Grab first launched in Singapore in 2015, and they quickly revolutionized the way we book private hire cars. Grab has also found its way into our daily lexicon, from getting a ride to getting a bite. Similarly, Douyin was first launched in China in 2016, and its international incarnation, TikTok, started building steam in international markets soon after in 2017. By first quarter of 2018, TikTok was the #1 most downloaded application on Apple's App Store and Google Store globally, with 45.8 million downloads worldwide. Clearly, change has been accelerating at breakneck speed. In the past, breakthroughs in technology would take decades to disrupt economies. Now, only a matter of 2 to 3 years. Put it differently, our pioneers might only see 1 to 2 major disruptions for the most part of their career, but the young today will see many disruptions in their lifetime. As a nation that must constantly adapt to survive and thrive, agility in our economic strategies and the way we govern is crucial. COVID-19 has certainly accentuated this need. Digital economy, digital government, and a smart nation. These are important and have to pick up speed. But this imperative also comes at a price. Countries like the US and China have huge domestic markets. For example, China's hospitality industry is almost fully recovered, with some sectors seeing growth thanks to domestic consumption. But Singapore is not endowed this way. Therefore, going digital is an important way of helping our businesses to reach markets in the region, if not the world. Going digital will also help our people access a wider pool of international job roles, even as they focus on their lives here. But change is tough. Businesses, for instance, may have different reasons for not digitalizing fast enough. Unlike MNCs that have vast amounts of resources at their disposal, SMEs may find themselves lacking the capacity to transform and therefore risk getting left behind. Our seniors and the more vulnerable, including workers who had a tough start in life, may find themselves unable to acquire the digital skills fast enough to catch up. It can be both painful and frustrating for these businesses and individuals, and we risk losing them. Does this mean that we should leave them behind as we churn ahead? Or should we abandon the idea of transformation altogether? Or is there a better, more balanced way to press on while still maintaining a safe space that allows the smaller ones amongst us to grow strong? It will be a difficult balance to make. Move too slow and we risk being overtaken by hungry competitors. Move too fast and we risk leaving behind a large segment of our population who face difficulties in adjusting to our rapidly changing society. This is a perennial dilemma that we face, almost cliché to mention, but it will be absolutely critical for us to strike the right balance. Second, balancing across generations. Singapore is in a time of a changing of generations. The baby boomers are now between 56 to 74 years old. Gen X is now 40 to 55 years old, and the millennials are now between 24 to 39 years old. That includes me. Gen X, the centennials, are now aged between 8 and 23 years old. At the end of this government's term, they will be between 13 and 28. How do we as the government meet the aspirations of the millennials and the centennials? How do we strike the appropriate balance between the wants of the baby boomers and Gen X while making space for the millennials and centennials to shape the world which they want to live in? In 2015, Senior Minister Tharman Shanmugaratnam told the world before the Singalan Symposium that our founding Prime Minister Lee Kuan Yew never expected Singapore's model of governance to remain this way forever. We cannot be trapped by our history, and we have to keep evolving. He said that the question we have to ask ourselves is how do we evolve in a way that is self-sustaining? How do we do it in a way that protects the liberties that matter most to people? How do we effect change while safeguarding freedom of religion and the freedom to aspire in life and achieve what you want through hard work? These, I think, are questions that this Parliament has to ask ourselves. Millennials and centennials have an idea of the future we want to live in. We have a certain view on climate change and protecting the environment. We have views on social justice and social mobility, which cannot be ignored. We have ideas on work-life balance and social security, which, in many regards, may not completely align with the views of the earlier generations. As we pass laws and policies, there will be trade-offs. The question is, where should the appropriate balance lie? Let me give an example. If this government chooses to spend more to advance the welfare of retired seniors, then the younger working taxpayers will have to tighten the belts. Conversely, if we choose to spend more on combating climate change and protecting the environment, for example, then something that is important to us today may have to give. In some instances, it can be a zero-sum game, and there will be trade-offs. This government has to weigh the different interests, hear the people, and find balanced solutions that care for the older generations while creating space for the younger generations to shape this nation into one that they can be proud to call home. Third, balancing openness and fairness, or as some put it, between the foreign and local. Allow me to share that our workforce has also changed. Singaporeans today enter the corporate world armed with world-class degrees from our tertiary institutions. They graduate with dreams and aspirations and expect opportunities, promotions, and progression in their careers, rightfully so. But many of my residents have also become weary over the perceived injustices at work. Enough Singaporeans have begun to feel that our system does not cultivate our local talent as much as it should. We've all heard anecdotes like this. Top managerial positions continue to be filled by foreigners who may not be even as academic qualified as our local graduates. A second-time voter told me during my campaign visit that her boss, and her boss are foreigners in the MNC that she works in. She could not understand why even the middle management positions are held by foreigners. Another mature resident, who is now in a senior management role in another MNC, told me about how a European candidate with no relevant APAC experience was chosen over him for an APAC role in a previous job application. Is this because Singapore's education system is inferior and therefore cannot produce capable managers, CEOs, and other senior staff? It would be strange if so. Our education system is globally recognized. However, this government must continuously evolve it to prepare it for the future. While paper qualifications and examinations are important, soft skills are invaluable to the working world. Most businesses place considerable value on the ability to articulate thoughts and ideas clearly, to communicate effectively, and demonstrate willingness to collaborate and work as a team. Greater emphasis must be placed on such areas. Let's consider an example. Perhaps say we have two equally qualified employees, but there is only one opening for a promotion to a managerial position. Like for like, one can imagine that the candidate who is more willing to work with anyone, more apt at building relationships with clients, and more enthusiastic about going out of the way to network will secure the post. Our education system has to ensure that more often than not, that preferred candidate is a Singaporean candidate. At the same time, the government should formulate a plan to cultivate young adults in our workforce for potential leadership positions. I firmly believe we have considerable talent in our young adults. We just need to equip them, guide them, mentor them. There are many schemes that focus on building technical knowledge and skills. These include the likes of Skills Future and TESA. There are others that help Singaporeans switch tracks like PCP. These are wonderful schemes that allow Singaporeans to adapt in a fast-changing world. But we also need programs that help Singaporeans that push Singaporeans further along their career path to become leaders. There is a need for greater transparency to what firms, especially large firms, are expecting of their corporate leaders. Having a framework identifying the key criteria, skills, behaviors, and attitude needed at various levels of management would offer Singaporeans clarity on what they have to do to attain a promotion. The framework could provide a useful roadmap with signposts to better guide younger, high-potential Singaporeans. On top of that, to create a network of mentorships, whereby prominent, successful, and more experienced professionals or business leaders can guide younger Singaporeans in a similar profession or industry. Some of these mentors could be older Singaporeans who have made it big and now want to give back, or they could perhaps be specifically headhunted from overseas by our government. These mentors can guide the younger Singaporeans along in their careers, offer invaluable advice based on their wealth of experience, and provide insights into how they can be better. There is of course no guarantee that by going through the above, one will certainly land himself or herself in that coveted top position. We need to make clear of this. But it shows our government and our nation's determination to develop our young and climb the ladder. If we can find a way to cultivate a critical mass of Singaporean talents who not only are technically skilled, but also with leadership skills and acumen, the ecosystem will be so much healthier and competitive. Setting stricter quotas and higher minimum wages for employment passes are needed to address systemic vulnerabilities. But it is much more meaningful to have employers preferring to hire a Singaporean not just because they are obliged by our laws, but because they believe Singaporeans are worth the premium. In Mandarin, please. 国家治理是一项极其复杂的社会活动。国家治理包括政治、经济、社会、文化、法律等各个方面。国会乃法律的诞生地，也是我们针对影响国家及人民的现在与未来的课题进行辩论的重要平台。因此，可想而知，国会中辩论的课题也同样复杂。随着全球改变的洪流，新加坡社会的进步，人们的思想也变得更多层次。同样的，这届国会比以往更多元、更多色彩。因此，构建一个全方位视角、具平衡又能跨越政治理念鸿沟的治理模式越发重要。新任期刚开始，我认为政府比较迫切地需要争取3个平衡：第一，如何平衡现在与未来，抓紧时机，快速转型，掌握世界大格局变化中的契机，而又拿捏好经济快车的速度，确保所有国人跟得上，取得包容性发展。第二，如何平衡每一代人的需求，保持代际公平，维持社会契约。第三，如何平衡社会的开放及保障国人的利益，引进外来人才，以加强我国竞争力的当儿，要更积极地培育我国人才，确保国人得到应有的公平的就业及提升机会。新加坡人不能被比下去。举个例子，新加坡正积极实施智能国的计划，全力实现未来经济。数码化的未来已经是必然的。我们的青年在高度数码化的环境中可谓如鱼得水，因此铸建一个让新加坡青年能够施展拳脚的未来尤为重要。可是我们当中仍有一群国人需要帮助，当中就包括我们的长辈们。迅速数码化对很多长辈们而言是苦不堪言。例如，在 Safe Entry QR 码刚开始强制实施的时候，他们不知道该如何去应付。虽然有手机，但是不会扫，有的甚至连医生都不敢去看。大家都知道 Safe Entry 的重要性，对青年而言这是轻而易举，可是对长辈们而言，这个是非常的艰巨。庆幸的是，现在数月过去了，大家也都比较熟悉如何操作 Safe Entry。这也都让大家淡定了许多。因此，我们在全速前进时，必须时刻记得要体恤并照顾长辈们的需求。与此同时，希望政府可以加大力度，鼓励并协助长辈们轻松地认识科技，学习利用科技来帮助自己的生活。除了一系列亲老的课程以及购买器材与手机数据使用的津贴，是否能够推出一个数码采用奖励？类似强化数码能力奖励的津贴，鼓励长辈们使用科技，甚至电子付费。回归正题，平衡治理，权衡各群体的需求，达到互补和谐的状态，并一同前进，这都不容易。 These are the questions that we need to answer through community conversations and then translated into legislations in Parliament. I'm constantly reminded that as a Parliament, we bear the responsibility of shaping the future for all Singaporeans. We can and we should react to the changing tides around us. However, we also need to be deliberate about designing a future that every Singaporean can look forward to and is confident of achieving for himself or herself. As Madam President observed in her opening address, politics today must be conducted in a manner which cultivates conversations and offers opportunities for individual citizens to be heard. I agree. We need to listen and engage our citizens actively. It's a two-way traffic. As a developed nation, our children grow up having dreams that they want to fulfill and an idea of the future they desire for themselves, families, and children. Many of my residents and volunteers do, and they're willing to put in the effort. They know there is no free pass in life. There are trade-offs. But sometimes the trade-offs that need to be made for that desired future are not immediately apparent. Hence, we need to have frequent and earnest conversations with each other. We need to discuss and foster an understanding of the trade-offs for each major decision taken. Better still, forge a consensus on the kind of trade-off we are prepared to make. So in determining the kind of Singapore we want, the future we desire, and the path and speed to get there, how can we balance the need for agility and the need for meaningful citizen engagement? I do not have a model answer, but I think being more open to explore difficult issues with Singaporeans is a start. It is one way to show trust in our increasingly sophisticated people. We need to rethink how current citizen feedback platforms are designed and to what extent does it have the power to oblige relevant agencies to review and not just defend policies. And of course, we need to make better use of technology so that we can conduct more sessions to reach out to more people. The 14th Parliament has our work cut out for us, but we can enlist ideas and advice of Singaporeans from all walks of life to help us chart a balanced path forward. Today, as we rise from the shadows of the COVID outbreak, I remain confident that we will overcome this challenge of a generation and work together to bring Singapore to the next level. We can do it, so just do it. Thank you.